me to put the dunce cap on? The mayor gave me the dunce cap, he likes doing that.
He gave you the dunce cap?
Now he's gonna give you one this time.
Oh,
Okay.
you can't. You can't.
28 years.
Just for the record, could we,
I know, right?
for the record, could you repeat the motion to come out of executive session?
I make a motion to adjourn executive session.
Second.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Kelpie?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Mouskin? Ms. Michael? Yes. Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Okay, we are back on track. Thank you, Mr. Semino. The first item on the agenda this evening is the approval of Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of November 21st, 2022. Were there any additions or corrections to those meeting minutes? Do we have a motion to accept as submitted?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance to amend the city's codified ordinance sections 1060.10 and 1062.07. This was sponsored by Public Health and Safety, and you should have it in your packets, the information that's there. Ms. Michael, sorry, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, so if you look at 106.10, maintenance of containers, this was how the suggestion was written by the law director. The two words, practical and convenient, we took out. The information that this was passed out was not the city of Ravenna's ordinance. So when we were pulling and we pulled this up, this was an example of another ordinance. So we sent this information and to the law director, and he rewrote containing the same information with removing practical and convenient. Then on ordinance the 1062.07, placing recyclable materials for collection, we added the number down below to reflect that as per the request. Any questions or changes? I know, Dr. Kelpie, you had some questions.
Well, the concept of taking the trash cans away from the front of the properties, I think I'm okay with. I do have concerns, though, in the various iterations of what were written and how it will be interpreted, okay? For example, when it says again that all containers will be kept as far from the streets and public ways as possible, I'm not sure what that means, as possible.
So it's another redundant word.
That means all the way to the back line of the back property. I don't know. The other thing that I don't know about is all the containers shall be kept or stored behind the front of all residential units. What is the front of the residential unit? In the language that we had from Frank on November 17th, it said behind the front line of the home or garage as it faces the street. So where is the point that it has to be behind? If the house is this far out and the garage is here, farther back, where does the trash can meet the requirement of behind the front of the residential property? Can it be in the alcove between the front of the house and the garage, where I see a number of them sit right now? Or does it have to be around the corner of the garage and behind the line of the front of the garage?
There it gets very.
I just have that question because if we're going to say what the line is, we have to know what the line is.
The line's the face of the house.
Of the house,
Of
but
the
not
house.
the garage.
But,
Correct. It's the
Should
house.
it, should it say front building line?
yeah, I don't
I
like the,
think it should be determined.
because a strict reading of this means you have to keep your trash inside your house. Behind the front of a building unit is inside your house. the line extends beyond the building itself. So it's either inside your house or behind your house. I think the language is a little bit misleading. And then I don't understand there's something about fences too. Corner lots are permitted to use fencing to screen their receptacles upon approval from the building department? What is that?
Well, picture a corner lot and the driveway on the corner, so to speak. So the way you would function, you would probably bring your garbage can to the garage side of the house, which would be potentially on that corner. So we're telling the residents, move your trash can behind your house or beside your house. Well, it's still facing the other street. We're not gonna ask them to put it on the opposite side of the house where the driveway isn't. You would come out of your house, generally through the garage, through the man door, put it in the trash can. So the trash can, common sense says it's gonna be on that side, but it's gonna face a corner.
Right.
So to hide that, put a little fence around it, like a 3-foot by 4-foot board-on-board picket fence.
We had talked about that, and I know they even sell things like that that aren't expensive, but the wording is that corner lots are permitted, not required, so then it's just,
Maybe they wanna put it in their garage.
no, but I'm saying it's permitted as if it's allowed, not required. So then they don't have to do it anyway. I mean, again, I think it's a little bit confusing.
Bob, what is your opinion on the way, is this ordinance written in a way that you're,
I wrote it. So yeah, I know exactly what it says.
so is it acceptable for what you guys are able to,
Yeah, but honestly, we're not gonna go look for these things.
no,
I mean, like I told you, when I drove down the street, I saw every single garbage can. If you go out down the street and you think and you look for a red car, you're gonna see red cars. If you go down the street and you look for trash cans, you're gonna see everybody. And they weren't necessarily in an untidy manner.
right.
I agree.
So, you know,
It's for the ones who are habitually having problems.
But we're
that-
penalizing everybody.
we're, maybe, maybe. And generally, like I said, generally they're on the side of the garage. There was a few I saw in the front. Obviously, they're gonna have to move the can to get the car in the garage if they're putting the car in the garage. But I don't know why it sat there, but there wasn't trash all around, that the lid was closed and that sort of thing. But, I mean, open to suggestions, it's just something we have to be able to enforce.
So the current ordinance that we have in place now doesn't enforce the issues and concerns with trash being out of the trash can and stuff like that?
It should, it does.
We already have
does.
this section, there's a different
We
section.
had the two words that we had to take out,
Yeah.
practical and convenient, because those two words, as we've talked about very long time, needed to come out.
So,
It's hard to define practical and
oh,
convenient.
no, I agree with you. I just struggled with this the whole time with, there's folks that keep their bins neat and tidy in the front of their house, and it's not an issue. I just don't wanna penalize people that are keeping their bins neat and tidy in front of their house, might be me, that has, the lid is closed, there's no issues, I don't have trash all over the
And I
yard.
guess, we're at the point, it's your choice.
No,
And
no,
if
I know,
we
I
can vote it
just-
down, we cannot move it forward. I've tried for quite some time to get this ordinance, and, to me, I don't think trash cans, that's my personal opinion, should be in front of the house.
I'm just struggling to understand what this is gonna change with
It's
what's.
gonna help
with-
give the building
with-
department some
with-
teeth.
But the complaints have been trash out of the can in the past.
And,
Yeah.
trash everywhere, and trash in the front that looks junky. There are some people that don't keep their trash neat and tidy.
But those items are already enforceable, correct?
But he said the last time it wasn't enforceable because we had practical and convenient. It wasn't on the list,
Location,
the location.
practical and
Right.
convenient, correct. But you're right, not having lids and
Overflowing garbage.
having the birds
That
and
can
the
all be-
raccoons
okay.
pulling it out, that is an ordinance, correct?
I hope that no one gets frustrated in talking about this. I know we're talking about it a lot, I know, but we're just trying to work on the front end of it so that we don't have trouble on the back end of it if we pass something that leads to further questions. I am not against people taking their trash cans out of the front of the house.
Yeah, me either.
I'm not against that. The front of the house could be defined for me, the house and the garage. to me, I would be okay to have it all the way across. And then they would have to go around the edge of the garage, you know? But if we're saying the front of the house, then that means if they have an attached garage, it's okay for them to put it in front of the garage. I'm just pointing that out. I mean, I'm okay too with that, you know?
Let me ask a quick question then. Do we have enough information? Is everybody in favor of moving something on with edits? If there's something, are we in favor of moving this on to the next meeting and considering making edits or amendments to this proposed ordinance?
Yeah, and my only suggestion, if we could, is just instead of front of all residential units, isn't building line, isn't that really the definition of the demarcation of where the front of the of a residential unit would be across the property? And behind that line would mean anywhere behind that, and that would take care of Mr. Calfee's concerns, I believe.
The zoning setback would be defined as, in the residential district, be it 40 foot or 20 feet. If it's an R4, it could be 20. If it's R3.
That's the minimum it has to be from the.
Correct, that would be where the house is, but in the older homes that are in existing districts could be closer to the street.
Yeah, but
So
isn't,
the house is defined, I would
But
believe
isn't-
the house is defined.
but isn't the building line the definition of where the structure meets that either setback or it's closer? But that's the definition, I don't know other word to put it.
Well, for new construction, yes, but existing, you know, they might not meet the current zoning code.
Well, I don't know that we care whether it's within the setback. We just want it where it's behind where they built the front of the house. I'm just asking if building line would be a better terminology than front of all residential units. Or consider that, I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
we're not gonna be able to resolve this tonight.
Well, that's part of my question. If we are going to, if we're generally in favor of updating this ordinance and moving it on, then we can edit that ordinance or make amendments to it during the meeting, whether that's one reading or 3 readings.
Okay. Yes, I'm in favor of what you just said.
Is there any other questions on this that we want to hash out? Well, considering this,
Don't want to belabor the whole point, but just a discussion of the idea of the corner lot and how they will be treated. If your house is on the corner, you have a front of the house and the side of the house, okay? Right now, many of the people have their trash on the side of the house, okay, on a corner lot. But that faces that side street then. So that becomes the question, do you make them go ahead and put it all the way around behind the house, or do you allow them to put a fence in there? Or do you give them an exception that all corner lots can choose that side, you know, and it'd be okay?
Well, and then you also-
I don't know. It's not something that I want to die for, but the corner lot, we may want to think about how we treat those places. Maybe we don't want to give an exception at all. Maybe it does need to be fenced or around the back of the house. I'm just saying, I want us to have time to think about it is all.
And I'm just kind of thinking too, I mean, sorry, but like if you're gonna make people build a thing around that, I could see some people being upset about that, I mean, that.
Well, I don't
costs
It's an
me.
expense.
We weren't talking about originally making people build anything.
well, I read it as they're permitted. So to your point, Rob, they don't have to.
Yeah.
But then that allows them to put it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to, I see where you're coming from, Mr. Calfee, and that was my question. I put a question mark next to that sentence because I wanted to get it clarified, but I think it's something, Bob, I can ask outside of council and in preparation for the next meeting.
Well, and something else too to think about are the large corner properties, large corner houses that are a 2 or more unit property. So you have technically the front of the home, but you have an entrance. One tenant lives on one side of the street, one on another. How do you, if it's a corner, where do you designate that property? And we have a lot of those throughout the city. As a matter of fact, one particular property that I have in mind, there's not much, if any, setback for where the house is built. It's very close to the road. And one of the unit's front doors is on the front corner of the property, and the other one is just on the side. And there is no property, no yard, no lot. The neighbor's driveway is right next to that door. There's nowhere that they don't have a property that goes back anywhere.
Would that fall under then additional receptacle locations may be determined by the service director?
There's nowhere to put it. They literally, the house takes up the footprint of the lot.
Where do they put it now?
It is, the side unit has it right next to their door, which is behind the building line, but the other unit has it next to the driveway, right in front of their walkway. But there's things, and I don't wanna write something and say, but we have exceptions. I would rather come up with something that we can go across the board. I don't want anyone to be able to say we're pointing fingers. I wanna be careful and make sure that we can cover our bases in general across the board of what we're trying to accomplish.
Larry?
Quick question, does a corner lot have two building lines?
Good question.
Yes, it does.
Blowing our mind over here.
All right.
Bob's already stated, and I'm sure that's the right thing, that he's not gonna go out there and enforce this with a heavy hand. If something's in front of the garage or whatever, if it's not laying on the ground, the trash isn't there, and the dogs aren't getting to it. It's to take care of what we have down here, 2 blocks from here, where the trash cans never leave the street. And I can give you 8 or 10 more of those. They're on our property, the city's property, and it never leaves there. That's what this is for. That's what they wanted this for originally. We put other ordinances out there that we've never really enforced all the way, and I can look at the one for RVs and trailers. We've only enforced that thing, I think, maybe one time, and that was for a property where there was a problem. And if there's no problems here, you don't have to change this thing about the setback or whatever. Somewhere down the line, you gotta protect us from our city looking like a mess, which it is right now. And that's what I think you should do on it. You should make it so it's enforceable for the stuff that really sticks out. Because Bob and his people do not have the time to go out there and deal with all this. You got better things to do. Okay, and it'll eat into those times, so that's.
Thanks, Cliff.
Thanks, Cliff.
Sir. So we all right if there's no other questions or comments right now with moving this forward?
Yep.
What is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right, number 3 on the agenda is an ordinance to amend the city's codified ordinance, section 244.05. This is also public health and safety. Ms. Michael?
That is
Ambulance fees.
this the, hold on a minute,
Ambulance.
the ambulance one? Okay, I wasn't sure if it was the fire contract one. I was looking now, because on my list I have the contracts. Okay, I am going to turn this over to Chief Chapel. Go ahead.
That's fine. So Brian and I have, sat down and discussed what we thought a fair proposal of charges would be for our emergency runs. And we submitted our proposal to, Life Force Management, Andrea Tharp. She came back and said that, she's 100% on board what we think our proposal is, and actually stated that, if anything, we're actually still on the low side. So we're not out to hurt anybody financially just because they have their own private insurance. But we do think over the last 10 years that there is an increased cost associated to the city for our supplies that we need to get revenue back in for. So if you saw, like, basically what we did is our basic life support transportations, we asked from $550 to $650. Advanced life support 1, which is an ALS 1, so like I explained in our last meeting, it would be like if we started IBE, stuff like that, would go up, that would reflect a $100 increase. The ALS 2 would be $125, and the reason why we went with the extra 25 is because of the extra, like, EKG patches, stuff like that have even capnography. For us, it looks like oxygen tubing basically tells you where your end tidal CO2 is in your, one of those nasal cannulas is 10, 15 bucks, just for that one piece of equipment. So for us to actually monitor that has a even higher cost associated with it. Our mileage, we went up $2, which I think originally her proposal was 16.
Yeah, 16.
And then a non-transport, we thought just a $25 increase from 50 to 75 was more than fair for us to come out to do a patient evaluation, patient assist. That would include like a set of vitals and, a true assessment to the patient, and then their determination that they don't want to go to the hospital and refuse our transport.
A question that I had on that is, the suggested rates from Life Force on a non-transport was $300, and that is the one increase that we did that's way, way less than what they were recommending.
Correct.
And what is the thinking behind that?
Well,
I got kind of a thought too.
Okay.
So that one, I know a lot of people really get upset about sometimes, because first off, it's not really covered by insurance much. So you hate to really sock it to the the residents, because they're going to pay balance bill usually that whole thing.
Okay.
So you hate to put that on people, and you want to make it enough so that people aren't using it as just a healthcare thing. So hey, come get me, come check my vitals, But at the same time, you don't want to punish people too much for that. They could have just passed out. They could have got dehydrated or whatever. It could be something real simple. So because it's not covered by insurance, people sometimes have a big issue with that one. So we try not to penalize. Where usually the insurance will cover, once you've hit your copay or your deductibles, it'll be 80 or 90% of it they're going to cover. So it's probably better to do that end. That's my thought on it.
We have a number of those calls, though, that are non-transport calls, I believe. It represents a fairly large number of our calls.
we do. Off the top of my head, I'd say less than 5% of our calls are non-transport.
That low, okay.
So if we ran 2,000 EMS calls, I'd say somewhere 100, 150 of those calls would be a non-transport related call.
Is that true though? Insurance doesn't usually cover most of those. At least that's what I've seen.
They don't, they typically kind of squawk at it because there was no definitive care associated with it.
Okay.
So for us to come out and assess, even if we do like a blood sugar and a set of vitals, BP, heart rate, oxygen saturation, they kind of don't want to usually pay those services.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay, thanks.
So I brought up the fact that last week when we discussed this, services for Medicare and Medicaid are only, that's not even the right term, we only accept what Medicare and Medicaid pays. And so I suggested language that we include that limitation too. And Brian, you ran it past somebody at Life, whatever, and they didn't like the language.
Yeah, I ran it, well, it was just quickly this afternoon though, because I just saw that, but I did run it by Chris Knapp. She's the owner of Life Force, and she didn't like that original draft. She didn't say it shouldn't go in there at all though. Like you said, you're kind of flexible in the language, so she just didn't like that particular iteration of it. But you did show me the one that Kent had, and I did forward that to her to look at. I have not heard back from her yet though. So maybe before we get this ordinance revised, we can, because Kent did have language in there, like you were talking about. So.
Although I find it a bit convoluted.
Yeah, and they probably wrote that 20 years ago. I mean, it could have been a long time ago, so maybe it needs to get reviewed as well. I know Kent will be bringing this up next year as well, you know, so.
Right.
Because Kent right now is running the same ALS, BLS, all those
Yeah.
rates as we are right now. They're just a little higher in the mileage and a little higher in the non-transport.
Right.
But they do have Medicare and Medicaid language. Maybe we need to see if we can get a better recommendation on that, and even run it by Semino too.
Yeah, I think that would be a prudent thing. I mean, I hated to hear that we sort of have our books and we charge when we know we're not gonna collect more than the Medicare, Medicaid rate, and that seems to be uncollected money, which doesn't sound right.
Right, sure.
So-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do we know the percentage of calls that are Medicare or Medicaid?
They were the majority of calls, right?
55.
Yeah, I wanna say, off the top of my head, I wanna say 56% of our calls are Medicare. It was 26% of our calls were Medicaid, and roughly 18% of our calls were private insurances.
And why would we not then raise our rate higher on BLS, ALS, and ALS 2, since we're only talking about those people that are probably covered by insurance?
Well, my thought on that is that, okay, so there's different instances with private insurance.
Okay.
'Cause first off, if you get billed at the beginning of the year, we were talking about this earlier, Chief and I, a lot of times you have not met your deductible yet. So if you haven't met your deductible yet, you're gonna be subject to that entire balance. So you're gonna have a pretty high balance. Two, some people are on higher deductible insurances, and if they choose that, I mean, that is their choice, of course, they're gonna save on that, but then when they do get these bills, they're gonna be responsible for most or all of these charges. So it really kinda can hit the resident's pocketbook if you go too high on it. You know, we gotta be fair, we gotta recoup our costs, but at the same time, we would like to get what we can out of these insurance companies too, so it's kind of a.
Yeah, which is what I'm getting at,
Yeah.
is money that we're not recovering, we're not getting, and we're the ones that are short on the money. We're the ones that are not getting it. So,
Right.
I guess, given all of that, I would be okay with these increases. The increases, $100 in, our BLS or ALS. But I would also maybe request that this might be something we want to review on an annual basis. Last increase was, I believe, 9 years ago
And I
on
was even
this,
thinking
so.
maybe we could subject, like we do with our water and sewer rates, we could subject it to COLA and then kind of adjust it
Yeah,
accordingly.
okay.
That might be an idea too. I don't know if anybody's done
Yeah.
that, but it
Yeah.
seems like it makes sense.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go and review it every year. You kind of,
Yeah.
well, COLA went up 3% this year, so let's go ahead and
Yeah.
stick 3% on it.
I have a question, Brian.
Yeah.
So, say we did the full increase,
Mhm.
but we soft billed private insured as well, just like we did with the Medicare and Medicaid,
Yeah.
and accepted what the insurances provided, and the rest was a soft bill
Mhm.
to city residents.
That's kind of what Kent does. They
Right,
have-
because that saves the city residents, they can accept the we can accept what the insurance covers, and the more that they are billed, usually the insurances will pay more, but that way we're not penalizing
They're already paying taxes.
our private insureds to cover really basically all of it.
That's a possibility, and there are some places that do that. I mean, the only thing is that, like, you're gonna have a lot of them that are, well, first off, at the beginning of the year, they probably have not hit their deductible. We're not gonna get anything for them, so we're gonna get a lot of runs with nothing. And also the high deductible plans, those kind of things, we're probably gonna get nothing off those. So there will be some we'll get zero on if you do that.
Especially
If we could
non-transports.
separate out the,
Non-transports, we won't get anything
Any
on.
non-transport that we have at the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
we would not collect anything on, because obviously it wouldn't go
Mhm.
towards their deductible, it'd all be going towards their deductible.
Yeah.
Where you're gonna recover is the calls we make a transport to, they are automatically gonna get associated with a hospital bill. The hospital is gonna bill them before the city bills them, because we have to do our report, submit it to Life Force. By the time Life Force does their end of it and submits it into the insurance, the hospital is usually the first one to get their checks before the city would get our check.
Yeah.
I want to separate out the issues, because we have the increase, that it sounds like everybody, as it's written, is okay with, and then the soft billing conversation and the amending Medicare and Medicaid conversation. So I think as it's written in front of us, my question with the increase for Life Force and just sticking to that, are we okay as it's written
Yes.
from the chief? And then would you want to, my question,
I think Brian's taken care of, he's contacted the Life Force
Yeah,
representative.
we're waiting for her to get back to
And
us
that,
on that.
and the Kent, the one part in Kent's kind of covers all of that.
Yeah,
The
and I've got it open
Medicaid
too.
and also the deductible, co-insurance, co-pay and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
maybe we
and
could
Did you
just
share
put it
that
in.
with, I don't know if everybody else saw that, I saw it, but.
I think I just shared it with you and
Yeah, okay,
and the
and
chief there.
here, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can share that language too.
Okay. For, I guess this, well, let me ask on number 3 on the agenda, if there's no questions, then what's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
And then my question to council on the other 2 issues, is this something, a request for public health and safety, or is this a request to address this at the next council meeting?
I think it's something more, I don't know that it would be appropriate at a council meeting, do you think?
I'm
More of
just-
a committee meeting?
Yeah, you want to, can we add this to public health and safety in January to have the two discussions on soft billing that Ms. Wood was talking
Oh.
about, and Medicare, Medicaid that you were talking
So you
about?
want to separate them and pass the increase at
Yes.
January and then continue to, yeah, that'd be fine. There's no rush, I don't see any rush to.
Okay. All right. So we will do that then. So number 4 on the agenda is the ordinance to authorize the mayor to advertise for bids for the 2023 annual paving program. This is sponsored by Streets and Sidewalks. Mr. Harper?
Yes, the annual budget's a little bit higher this year. We have 2 major projects going on. Has everybody had a chance to see the budget yet?
Is that what was said today?
I think it was sent out.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I didn't look.
I sent
But
the
it-
numbers out this evening, along with the map, the paving map. There was 3 attachments, but those were 2 of the attachments.
1.4 million?
1.4, yes.
That includes phase 2 of South Freedom, then the Prospect Chestnut Street, and then the Main Street. And we don't have a whole lot of other ones going on after those 2 big ones, but three big projects, so.
And do you happen to know how many lane miles we're attempting?
I'm thinking about 13 or 14
Wow.
lane miles.
Okay, wow,
Yeah, I believe it's 14.
okay.
Approximate. They didn't wheel off each lane, but it's approximate.
Yep,
Look at that chestnut.
thanks.
Mr. Finney, I'm sorry. It's okay. On the South Freedom Street project, is there only 2 phases or 3 phases?
My intent is 3 phases.
Okay,
So we'll do the middle section,
okay,
which is about 270 feet
okay.
long. And then, obviously, the next year, the 3rd phase, the final
Okay.
phase.
Okay, and I was under that understanding, just on the map, it showed that the project was, I guess it was the whole length of the project that was on the map, not what section we were doing.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, that's
got
what it was.
extended a
Okay,
little
I understand. That was my understanding also. Thank you.
That there is a chance that ODOT will not pave Main Street until calendar year 2024. Their fiscal year starts July of 2023. Fiscal year '24 starts. So I'm not optimistic they will actually pave calendar year 2023 based on when their calendar year, their fiscal year starts, when they're going to advertise the project, award a contract, could be September, October. Asphalt plants, as you know, close. So in some ways, I'm hoping for that, so we can get Prospect, Chestnut, and Wyden out of the way, then we'll be out of ODOT's way to pave.
Any other questions, comments on this item? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right, number 5 on the agenda is an ordinance to authorize the mayor to advertise for bids for South Prospect and North Chestnut paving, also streets and sidewalks.
Yeah, we just discussed that a little bit.
Yep.
I believe both those projects will go from the north and south city line to Main Street, the whole length of both of those. So it'll be, again, a very big project.
Questions on this item? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Number 6 on the agenda is an ordinance to authorize the mayor to sign participatory legislature to pave Main Street.
And that's just that we are going to agree to ODOT's terms of how the project's gonna proceed
And contribute 20%.
and contribute to 20%.
Questions on this item? What's the
Wonderful.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Wonderful. I'm all for it.
Move this along.
Sign it along.
Yes.
Sign
Move
it
those
up.
telephone
Let's
poles.
move it.
All right, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Number 7 on the agenda is an ordinance to authorize the mayor to renew the tree keeper program for a 3-year period, also sponsored by Streets and Sidewalks.
This
Mr. Harper.
is a 3-year period. The cost is $6,250 for the 3 years.
Any-
Tree keeper helps us keep track of all city trees.
Any questions on this item? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right, number 8 on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Hammond Tree and Associates, sponsored by Utilities. This was the sanitary lateral
Yes.
for Chestnut. You wanna,
Yep,
can I hand it off to
I
you?
can, and I did send this map to you this evening also.
Yep.
The sewer line is already installed. The sewer line served both GE buildings when they were operating as GE. Our ordinance states that two different business owners should not share a lateral. So at the beginning of the LG discussions, we had discussed internally that we could accept the sewer line, put it in an easement, and the city would be responsible to maintain. Both businesses will have to provide us access as part of the easement, so we can enter the property and clean the sewer line out if needed.
Any questions on this item? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Number 9 on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into fire department dispatch contracts, sponsored by Public Health and Safety. Ms. Michael?
This is just authorizing the mayor to enter into the contracts with the current contracts that we have for dispatch. No changes, no, just the same.
Questions on this item? What is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Number 10 on the agenda is an ordinance approving the 2023 payroll ordinance update, sponsored by the finance director, Mr. Huff.
Okay, thank you. This one is an annual housekeeping item, but because union negotiations are in process right now and are not finished, we have not adjusted the salary rates yet for the non-union, because we need to see where all the other union ones are gonna fall in at. I have not sent this out. I plan on doing this hopefully tomorrow. I got it almost ready to go. So, yeah, that's it.
Any questions on this item? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right, number 11 on the agenda is an ordinance to authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with the Medical Mutual for 2023 hospitalization coverage, also sponsored by the finance director.
Okay, and this is another housekeeping item we do each year at the year-end closing meetings. We are offering this, all the same plans. There's 3 different plans that we offered in '22. But the one thing that we did discuss in the healthcare meetings was a wellness plan. It's something we've been really wanting to work on. We finally came to some kind of terms with Medical Mutual. It's called a Bravo program, and it'll eventually reward people. We're working into the union contracts now, where if they participate and do a health screenings, they do a health wellness questionnaire and some other things like that, and participate in some activities, they can potentially save a decent proportion of their premium that they pay, that the employees will pay into the program. So there is a financial benefit if they participate in this. And the goal is to get healthier employees, to get, that they're better attendance, better health, and also it's supposed to bring down claims as well. I mean, it's not gonna be an instantaneous effect where 1 year it's gonna do it, but what it does, it's gonna try to increase on the big strokes, heart attacks, big things that come up all the time, that we're hoping to maybe this will help prevent a lot of those things with these screenings. So, that was the one change we did make in there. It's about, the plans themselves, they were about a 4% increase from 22 to 23, so that'll be the cost to the employees, and the cost to the city will be up about 4%, which isn't a bad percent. It's better than we've seen from most places.
Mr. Huff, did you say you had sent us a copy of those rates? Have we been able to see those?
Do you know, Chelsea, if the plans were sent out? I thought Tammy sent those out.
I sent that out with the agenda.
With the agenda, okay.
It was a
Okay.
separate attachment.
The wellness program, so are you saying that employees who participate, and that takes time,
Yes.
that eventually when they meet the requirements, their co-pays or whatever, premiums go down, or do they get a rebate?
It'll actually be a premium reduction, so they'll pay,
Really?
the less will be taken out of their paychecks if they meet the
Right.
programs.
Okay.
And we're not monitoring that stuff at City Hall. I mean, we're offering it.
Usually a
It all
third
goes
party.
through Medical Mutual,
Yeah.
so they run the program entirely. They let us know when the program has been met, and once we do that, we will change the rates
Oh, okay.
that we would deduct from their paycheck. So there's a savings. The Wellness Committee, which is made up of multiple departments and multiple representatives, they really like this program. They were really happy to do this.
Are
I
the
think it's a
deductions
good
on an
idea.
individual base, or is it deductions for everyone?
Well,
No, no.
everybody gets deductions, based on which plan you pick, whether it's the higher coverage plan or the lower coverage plan, and if they're in family versus single.
Sure.
So there's a certain rate, and then there's gonna be a certain deduction from that rate once they meet
It's
this program.
individual, it's not,
Yeah.
the
So they'll pay a
individual
little
has to
bit less.
complete those tasks to.
No, we have something similar, that's what I was at,
Yeah.
but we have to have a certain percentage of people participate, and then everyone gets a rate reduction. And we're,
Yeah, and that's something you can do too. We're just starting it, so that you don't wanna overwhelm people when you
Sure.
first start these programs. You wanna start off slow, and you kinda wanna work your way up through it. Heather and I really worked on this a lot together, and we really like the way it's set up, but you can't throw the whole kitchen sink at all at
oh,
once.
no, for sure.
So
for sure.
we're starting it with, you're gonna do these couple things. We'd like to eventually put like a smoking program in there, so if you're a non-smoker, that'd be a part of the program, you could get a little bit extra for that. And there's a lot of other things, you can put exercise stepping, in the number of steps you get. We haven't got to all that yet, I mean, you wanna introduce it, get it started, and then eventually, we're focusing mostly on the screenings right now and the questionnaires.
Well, it sounds
You
good.
know, the blood pressure, your blood sugar, those kind of things.
Will the city be offering the screenings?
That's what we're looking at, yeah, I think so. I mean, you can also get them through your own doctor if you do, if you submit your physical that does the blood testing and everything, it meets their requirements, that'll work. Or we're gonna try to set something up through the city and, get our UH or somebody in that involved with that, correct? Yeah.
Any other questions on this item? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Number 12 on the agenda is an ordinance approving the 2023 temporary budget. It's also sponsored by Finance Director.
Okay, and yeah, this one's another housekeeping item. This one we passed in July. I think council passed the budget in July for 2023, so there is no change to anything you guys have passed. The budget's gonna start the year with what was passed in July. So it's set, we have that set. We can't change that yet. And what will happen then, probably in March, we'll bring it back to council to amend that budget with suggested changes. We'll be meeting with departments again to kind of go over those things, and we'll come back with that in March.
Okay. Any questions on the budget? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Number 13 on the agenda is an ordinance accepting the distribution of income taxes collected in 2023. Brian, also.
Well, I just feel like the star here tonight. This is something. Boy.
Bring us home.
Yeah, but again, these are all housekeeping items, this one as well. Last year, we did make a couple changes on the income tax ordinance. We added a little bit, a touch more funding to the Parks Department. We also added a touch more to the Capital Fund. We liked how that's working. We've added a lot of capital things. In the street department, we did add a lot of capital this year, so this helped us fund that. I'd like to keep that going. There's still a lot of stuff coming up at various departments, so I'd like to keep it the exact same in '23 as we did in '22.
Any questions on this item? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right, and our final agenda item is an ordinance adjusting the 2022 estimated revenue and appropriations.
Okay, and again, this is another one we do, and we always pass this one at the year end. This one's actually taken this year's budget. We're gonna make sure we have everything in compliance for the auditors, so and it ties out with the county, so we have enough estimated resources to cover appropriations and make sure our appropriations cover all the expenditures we've made. So we'll be coming back. I have not sent that out yet. We're just starting to work on this right now, so it'll probably be out. I don't want to guarantee when this one will come out, but it'll be definitely out before your meeting, so we'll have the full schedule on this.
All right. Any questions on this item? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right, and our next meeting, as a heads up, is December 30th, 9 a.m. Final meeting of the year, so 6 days till Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody. And if we have, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Supposed to be a snowstorm.
We are, yeah, it probably is gonna be one.